This is the most important sources of America's greatness. We lead the world because, unique among nations, we draw our people, our strength, from every country and every corner of the world. And by doing so, we continuously renew and enrich our nation. While other countries cling to the stale past, here in America, we breathe life into dreams, we create the future, and the world follows us into tomorrow. Thanks to each wave of new arrivals to this land of opportunity, we're a nation forever young, forever bursting with energy and new ideas, and always on the cutting edge, always leading the world to the next frontier. This quality is vital to our future as a nation. If we ever closed the door to new Americans, our leadership in the world would soon be lost.
That was Ronald Reagan back in 1989 talking about immigration and how important it is to the United States' greatness and strength. And he's far from the only Republican president who had to deal with the topic. Among them, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln's views on immigration are the subject of the new book titled Brought Forth on This Continent, Abraham Lincoln and American Immigration. Its author, acclaimed Lincoln historian Harold Holzer, joins us now. Harold, thank you so much for being with us. It is so great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be back after about 15 years, so great to be here.
Let's make this a more regular occurrence. There is some debate, and you can clear it up for me right now. There's so many quotes that we give all the time that people say, oh, no, well, Lincoln never said it, or Churchill never said it. But there's a quote attributed to Lincoln that if he didn't say it, it applies very neatly to slavery and immigration, and it is, I walk slowly, but I never walk back. First of all, did Lincoln actually ever say that? And secondly, explain how that applies to what he did on immigration.
He did say it. It's not written, but it was heard by a number of contemporaries, and I think it was specifically about emancipation. Once he took the step, he wasn't going to retreat, and nobody ought to look for compromise. On immigration, he evolved kind of slowly, first hoping to make alliances with nativists, anti-immigration forces, if they could be persuaded to join him in the fight against slavery. But ultimately, he did and said the right thing during his presidency. He recruited practically a foreign legion to fight for the Union. 23% of the Union Army was either German or Irish, Swedish, Polish, spoke with a foreign accent, basically. Another 200,000 were first-generation hyphenated Americans. Even in Illinois, when he was campaigning for the Senate, he had a fascinating quote, which I suspect you will like, Joe, because he said, looking out at a crowd of Germans, he said, I know you, on Independence Day, he said, I know you're not descended directly from the founders, but according to the promise of the Declaration of Independence, you're the blood of the founders just as surely as their own descendants. He didn't say they were poisoning the blood. He said they were enriching the blood.
Harold, you just pointed out the number of immigrants fighting in the Civil War. A couple 100,000 German immigrants, 150,000 Irish immigrants directly from their home country into the uniform of the United States of America. You also indicated that at one point Lincoln was willing to pay people from foreign countries to immigrate to the United States. How would that have worked, or did it work?
It was in his 1863 annual message, the equivalent of the State of the Union message, and he simply believed underwriting immigration would be create not only new soldiers, which he desperately needed with the casualty and injury rate, but as he frankly told Congress, we also have enormous gaps in employment on farms, in mines, and in factories. It was a bridge too far for Congress. And the language they used was pretty racist and nativist. This will invite the dregs of Europe to come here. So ultimately, Congress did pass, and Lincoln signed, a bill that would allow private industry to underwrite immigration in return for 1 year's practically indenture. Did it create a new slave trade, or did it create a really big new population? It depends on interpretation, but he was really pushing for it because, as he said, this is an enrichment. He said immigration is one of those things that Providence has created to improve and enrich our country.
So, Harold, congrats again on the book.
Thank you.
Tell us, after Lincoln's death, what happened next? Did his successors pick up this mantle, this view on immigration, or did the country swing the other way?
There was one more bill that kind of cured the lingering problems. Lincoln had created the first Federal Bureau of Immigration. Remember, immigration was not in the federal purview. According to the Constitution, the feds control naturalization, not immigration. So Lincoln brought the federal government into it, he thought, in a positive way. Subsequently, the Supreme Court indicated that under the Commerce Clause, the federal government could control. So that 1865 second immigration reform bill was the last positive legislation for exactly 100 years until Lyndon Johnson's immigration bill in 1965. Otherwise, it was restrict, restrict, restrict. When Eastern Europeans began coming in, restrict, and we know what happened in the Holocaust period when Jews were turned away because of quotas.
Harold, you've spent your life, your adult life, studying, writing about, editing books about Abraham Lincoln. I don't think it's an overstatement. I'm just speaking for myself here. I think we're entering the most important election since 1864 for this country. I'm curious, what are your thoughts about Abraham Lincoln's message? What would Abraham Lincoln's message be to America today?
I'd like to think that he would urge us to embrace the kind of tapestry of nationalities and races that make up America, to encourage the expansion of the country that he envisioned for after the Civil War, an inclusive, energetic country. And of course, I think that re-election you noted, Joe, which is widely believed one of the most important elections in history, said for all time, even in a civil war, democracy prevails. We needed to have a vote of the people, even if half of the territory was arrayed against the other half. And Lincoln himself said the most remarkable thing about that election was that it occurred peacefully. We have to fight, and I think Lincoln would want to fight for peaceful elections, peaceful acceptance of the result. Lincoln was ready to lose that election. He wrote a memo saying, "I pledge to cooperate with the incoming administration." That's kind of a lost art. It would be nice to see it again.
It would be. The new book is titled Brought Forth on This Continent, Abraham Lincoln and American Immigration. It's available today. I've already bought it. You should too. Historian Harold Holzer, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me.